Perfect, okay. And would you lead us in the flag salute, Madam Clerk?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jeannie. And do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda for this meeting, June 21st, 2022.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? No discussion. Signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? It is approved, and we will go ahead. Board comments. We just gave a little bit ago, but Jeannie, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Well, just, this is Joe's last board meeting, so, thank you for all that you've done for the district, Joe. Okay.
Okay, so I'll repeat that, and otherwise, I did some driving around at schools today, and I didn't find any students outside at Blosser, it was this morning, at Blosser or at the high school. So probably I just picked wrong hours to go wandering, because those are the two schools the district's using, right?
No, actually it's Brookside.
Brookside and the high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're not using Blosser this year.
No, I knew that part, I just thought, and so
And Bechtel. So.
Bechtel's being used, but Brookside's being used, I understood that they
Well,
weren't.
they were
because
last
slow.
week, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Then it's just because one program is finished
Yeah,
already.
they ran 1 week to start, and then they're 2 weeks to start before school starts.
Oh, okay, well, that makes good, thank you. I was wondering, we lost those children, no, okay. Could be serious, you don't know.
Talia?
I'll be for a while. A couple of weeks ago, we voted, or I wanted to make sure that we knew Paul Ubelhart, a principal that was over at Bechtel Grove, and I want more information, because he was more than just a principal. So Paul Ubelhart passed away on March 1st, 2022 at 90 years old. He was born in Michigan and attended high school in Lakewood, Ohio. He graduated from Ohio State University in 1953. He was a member of the school's ROTC program. He served as a second lieutenant tank commander in the Korean War. In 1955, he was discharged as a second lieutenant. He went and enrolled at Cal State Los Angeles and for a Master's of Educational Administration. Now this was the best part. His first job was a middle school in El Monte near LA. He was the principal, the superintendent, the bus driver, a janitor, just keep going, all in a one-room schoolhouse. In 1967, he took a job in Willits as principal of Bechtel Grove School, and he served there for 20 years. And then right after that, 5 years, he was the principal at Sanhedrin Continuation School. He's a family man and a very civic-minded person. He served with the Willits City Planning Commission. He was an active Rotarian. He was a member of the Willits Ham Radio Club. He was on the board of the Willits Senior Center. He was a census taker in 2000. He attended Mendocino College and got a degree in electronic technology. And he was also a trustee of the board of Mendocino College for 15 years. So that's why I think we should get a plaque.
And Rochelle is working on, trying to find the details of who placed, you know, it's
Yeah.
kind of a weird request with some places, so she's reached out to some of the places and awaiting a response, so.
Okay. And today, this morning at 9 o'clock, I was at Blosser Lane School assembling book carts. 4 of them with Amy Grooms. We have about 6 more to go. And Ron Runberg was doing the bookshelves there too. And tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in room 6, we would like to finish, and if you would like to volunteer your
I'll be there.
time. So 8 o'clock tomorrow, all right?
I'd like to be there, but I'll be at,
Oh,
I'm there from.
that's where we wanted to go today.
I'm there from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning,
We'll be there till.
and 5 and 6 in the evenings.
Okay, that was my report.
Thank you. I'd also like to extend my appreciation, Joe. I know it was a year, but you gave us a year. A year can be a long time, but it feels short. So appreciate what you did in this short time, and I'm sure our paths will cross paths again. And I wish you the best of luck in your new endeavor. I'd also like to extend appreciation to our HR person, to Trina. She's done an amazing job with the whole superintendency, garnering a superintendent in that quick a time. And you had the paperwork, you set up the meetings, it was quick and it was fast, but we had everything we needed when we went in those meetings. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
And I look forward to working with Mark, and I hope he's everything he said he is, and what he is on paper, and what his recommendations said about him, and, it all looks good, but I'm hoping he does a fantastic job. But I was so appreciative of the work you did, because you did so much in such a small amount of time. And we asked a lot from you, and you stepped up and did it. Not counting all the other hires you're doing, all the other teachers and classified and everything. HR is a very difficult position, so thank you so much. We had our Willits swim meet this last weekend, and I'll have to extend my appreciation to our maintenance group, because they did a lot of work on the pool. They did a lot of work in getting us cords or anything we needed. They were getting us, if we needed keys to get to things, they lent us keys. And so they were very available, and it wouldn't have been, we couldn't have got it done without them. It's a big chore to pull off one of those meets, and they really helped out a lot. That includes Maddie. I don't want to leave Maddie out. She directs the pool, and she's always helpful, and she takes care of us, and she gives us the lifeguards for the meet. So I hope everyone's starting to get a chance to rest. No? I know the district office isn't resting, and summer school is going, right? Hot and heavy. That's always a lot of work. But it's different. Summer school, for some reason, feels a little bit more relaxed, usually, than the regular school year. But I appreciate all the work that's still going on. And those of you that are not working, I hope that you relax and you take time for you and your family. But that's it from me. And superintendent's comments.
So I'll keep it very brief. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for the support this year and for all the good interactions. And I wish everyone the best in the future. And I'm sure that I'm just down the road. If anybody needs support with anything, just give me a call.
Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, consent agenda items. Do we have any public input regarding the consent agenda items? Yes?
Is this the part? Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Okay. And,
I have a question
oh, hold on, wait till we get to our discussion part.
on the consent agenda.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, because we'll have a discussion period.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do I have unless you want to pull an item, then we
Well,
will.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's wait and we'll go to the discussion. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, let's open it up for discussion. Paula?
On the third one, the approval of disposal of surplus Chromebooks, the way I read it, it sounds like, I mean, I noticed that they put $60 a piece on them and stuff like that, but
You mean the laptops?
yeah, the laptop, excuse me. So, oh, so that's different than the Chromebooks, right?
Oh, there
Or-
are Chromebooks on there too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you know what I'm seeing? Perhaps the agenda lists it as Chromebooks, but in the board report, it identifies it as laptops.
Yeah, I'm sorry, those are laptops, not Chromebooks.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so then they're all, then I'm talking about the same thing that we have those 40-some listed of, yeah?
Inspiron, that's all
Yeah,
laptops.
yeah, the Inspiron, yes.
They're all laptops, not Chromebooks.
Oh, okay, well, okay.
Okay.
Either way, what I want to know about is why they don't go to the Salvation Army or somebody, you know.
This is
to
just
do it.
getting it off the books. We have, there's about 20 of them that still work, like, fine. And we kind of plan on using them as either loaners or a computer to donate to families that need a laptop, like an actual computer in their home.
Uh-huh.
But that's just, there's only a few that we're gonna throw away because they're unusable completely. So we don't currently have a plan on how we are gonna dispose of them, we just want them off the books, so.
And in, our language, disposal just means release so that we can give them away to someone that's not considered a gift of public funds because it's reached the end of its useful life at that point. You know, these would not be great computers, but they would be something someone could do some word processing or something like that on. They won't meet the demands in like a classroom environment at this point.
So the $60 on them is just a standard comment?
HP doesn't even make them anymore and they won't even support them. I put $60 because that's what I found on eBay that someone was selling it for. They're probably not even worth that. If we tried to sell these to a company that takes old computers, we would actually pay them more in shipping than we would get back.
Okay, so the amount is just kind of just been put there.
Yeah.
Really, so our board policy on disposal of surplus items has a threshold where if it exceeds the threshold, then we are required to put some things up for like bid,
Mhm.
essentially. And so when we surplus it, we just have to identify essentially that it's not in excess of that threshold. I wanna say it's like $2,000 or something is that threshold. So we have to put some sort of value with it to help the board say, oh, this is not over the threshold, you can dispose of it by donating it or giving it to families or something.
Okay, so probably our threshold is higher, it's probably around $3,000 or $5,000. I mean, if we have 40 of them at $60 a piece, it's gonna be,
Yeah, it's like per item, I believe.
oh,
I
so
believe-
each of the $60 would have to be a couple of grand, 2,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so.
That's been
Oh,
the-
okay.
Typically where you end up seeing it happen is with vehicles.
Well, that's the
Where-
only place I know about that it's
Where
been
we've done the bidding, yeah.
Because
yeah.
with books and stuff, they just put those out
Yeah.
to go, they didn't have a value.
Right.
Oh, okay, that just isn't the way I've seen it done, is all. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on consent agenda items?
Oh, and the other question that I have is number 2, it doesn't say where Nuestra Alianza is going to be housed. I heard at one time it was,
They will be
Bechtel.
at Bechtel.
Oh, okay, so that's still happening, and then it will be the only one there because all the 2-weekers and the 1-weekers and things like that will be done?
Yeah, our extended school year for our special education will actually be over Brookside.
Oh, okay.
Going some of the same times, there'll be a little bit of overlap, but they won't be on the same side.
Yeah.
And that's largely, they've got the paving going on Blosser Lane, and so we didn't really know how much of the campus we'd actually have access to during summer session.
Well, yeah, no, that makes sense. Then, when the MOU that was set up with Classified and the district for the $100 extra, and the custodians were not on there, and the,
That's not on the agenda at the moment. That's not
you're
something-
right. What I need to know, however, is, are those connected and involved? Or that will have nothing, I mean, they're gonna have food service there, I would imagine, or is there food being brought in from,
The food service is a different issue. The MOUs are around summer school.
strictly
That we
having
run,
summer
yeah.
school? Oh, okay, and so what you're saying is I need to wait until another time to ask you those questions?
Well, yeah, it hasn't
Okay.
been agendized, so you're kind of moving off the subject in regards to the MOU.
Right, it would only be for discussion, for me to bring it up tonight, which is exactly where I want it to be. I'll just wait until the time comes. Thank you.
Well, I mean, you could bring it up as a future board item, but it's not anything that we can bring up and discuss unless we agendized it. It's not agendized, so we can't, it's not open for discussion. If you want to bring it up for a future board agenda item,
Okay, it doesn't come under public comments that are not on the agenda. I
well,
can't be a public person.
You're not public.
yeah,
You're
you're
the
not
board.
public, you're a board member.
Right,
However, you could recommend it for a future board agenda. In doing that, obviously, you'll explain why you feel it needs to be an agenda. Does that make sense? Agenda item.
sort of, except I don't mean to disagree with you, but I've been a public person as a board member before. Was that just out of the rules?
I would say yes,
Oh, okay.
since you're acting as a board member. I mean, we could further look into that. It's unusual. It would be very unusual.
You could always
because
resign and then like talk.
You're an
Excuse
acting
me?
board
You
member.
could just resign and then talk about for a public.
No, don't resign.
It's not gonna happen.
Don't do that. Okay, so for this item, for this consent agenda item, do I hear a motion to approve?
I mean, all three, the whole consent agenda, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, for items 1, 2, and 3.
We have a motion and a second already on the table.
Oh, I do. Excuse me. I'm getting behind on myself. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any. It was approved. And approval of the 2022-23 LCAP. And did you want to speak to that, Joe?
So I was able to go in and make the changes under goal 1 to add in the metrics that were missing at our meeting last week. Other than that, the document has stayed pretty well the same from what we reviewed last week at our public hearing.
Okay. Do we have any public input regarding the LCAP? Not seeing any. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move we vote on the LCAP, the goal indicators.
That would be item B is what,
Oh, B, oh yeah, there it is.
there you go.
Yes, 22-23 LCAP.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, fantastic. Discussion amongst board members.
Yeah. I'm really concerned about, well, first, these numbers that are given to the various things are not prioritizing numbers, right? They're just numbers.
It's just numbers, yeah.
Mhm.
It's just to identify in the conversation the action or
Whatever is coming up. Okay, and so then my other part of the concern is, naturally, there are issues in here for English language learners. But the only part of this that I see is really built in, although I know that some sort of administrative personnel is gonna come into play eventually, are two aides, which I am trusting are not the homeschool liaison aides, but two aides that would theoretically work in a classroom or do something like that.
Though we do also have the home, the bilingual liaisons are in this plan as well as.
I saw them, but they don't really, or maybe they do, you can enlighten me, work in a classroom
No, they work for students and connect to
to families.
families, yes.
Okay, and it usually deals in resources and things like that that the family could make use of, or how to become better incorporated into the school or whatever, right? So then, this plan talks about 2 aides for the multitude of classes. And they would be considered like instructional aides, right?
Right.
Okay, well then, I'm thinking that I'm correct in my concern that there are no credentialed teachers in anything in particular that has to do with limited English speakers, other than whatever the credentialed teacher of their classroom can offer them. And I'm disappointed, to say the least, that that's not something that is not a little more blatant. Before you came, I was told that that would be a part of it. And then when it was written up, and this is strictly on me, I wasn't able to make it to those 2 meetings. Excuse me, those 2 meetings, so I can see where it looks like I may be waiting another year. But I'm just curious as to maybe why that didn't come to you or come from anyone before you to have it somewhere built in? Or was the thought that an administrative position more or less was going to cover that?
Well, my thought process in it is that the administrative position would provide some guidance and some understanding of what was needed in that, so that we're not duplicating efforts and that we're being as judicious as we can with that. And that's why I brought forward the different positions that I have.
Like the reading specialists?
No.
Or no in general?
I mean, speaking of the administrative position, there
Uh-huh.
needs to be that level of analysis before we just start saying, well, let's do this or let's do that, or we need to have some direction there and some support for that as we're moving forward. And that's why I've asked to bring those positions forward.
Well, then, just sort of as a side to that, is that administrative position going to cover the testing that needs to be done at the beginning and end of the year? Or is that something that, because it's not set up anywhere either, and in the past, it's usually been necessary for a particular tester to do testing.
So that would be part of their job duties, would be to coordinate those, yes. They wouldn't necessarily be the person, I mean, they could be administering the test as well, but that's not necessarily the only role that they'll fulfill in that, and that's the job description that's on tonight. So those tests are given by various personnel throughout the district. It does not have to be a certificated personnel, so we've used classified employees to be able to do that. It's perfectly legal, nothing, it's not a moment that we're doing anything untoward in that situation. It's a normal part of any district I've been in that's run that way, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more discussion amongst the board? None. Not hearing any? Signify by saying aye for approval.
Aye.
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. 4 ayes. LCAP local indicators. The attached reflection on the local indicators for the California School Dashboard is a required part of the LCAP approval process. These items will be presented as part of the 2022 California School Dashboard in the fall of 2022. Joe, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. So this tool is something that I shared out with our administrators just to take a look and to review, to make sure that it seemed that where the assessment that I had seemed to align with where they thought we were. They all provided feedback saying that they thought that it seemed fairly accurate in that. There's no real clear guide as to exactly where we sit with any of this. There's not you just have to do some reflections, and the idea being that I don't think we're fully implemented in any of these areas, but we're making growth towards being able to through our various programs. And so that's what needs to be reported out to the state, is basically that on our local indicators we're making progress.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public input regarding this item? LCAP local indicators. Not hearing any. Do I have a motion? Oh, is this a motion item or informational?
I would approve it, yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the LCAP local indicators?
I move that we approve the local performance indicators. It's on the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Board, any discussion with the board?
I just think that making progress is what's needed after a couple of years of COVID, you know, and making progress is a good thing. So we're maybe not exactly where we want to be on everything, but we're making progress, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Item D, approval of the 2022-2023 Willits USD budget.
Okay, so I don't think we probably need to redo the presentation that we did last week. I want to let you know that attachments on Gamut, we have 2 items that were the exact same as what was presented last week, which was the one that's called 22-23 budget funds, and then the MYP. And then I also added in a third attachment that's the 6/21/22 additional budget items. And what got added is the criteria and standards, which is an analysis that we are required to do with each of our budgets that just helps us to identify that we're considering all appropriate planning factors as we build our budget. Helps us look at things like, particular types of expenditures relative to the whole budget, our reserve levels, our deficit spending, things of that nature. So that has been added. And then we have 2 funds which are things that are not maintained like in our regular day-to-day accounting throughout the year, but we are on an annual basis required to incorporate the fund balances in. And so that is Fund 08, which is ASB. So we are now legally required to incorporate the fund balance for the ASB funds. And then the Form 51, which is bond funds. So these are not the bond fund revenues, which have come into Fund 21. That's where we look at what our projects have been and what the expenses are. This is the sort of behind the scenes fund that sits at the Treasury, which is used to pay back the actual bonds themselves. So we are required to list those fund balances. So there's not very much data there. You'll see more detail at the closing in September, but I just want to let you know that those 2 forms have been added. And then in addition, we have the budget adoption reserves. So for you all sitting here, it's this one. And this has to do with the requirements for the district to disclose what our current reserve levels are in relation to the state minimum, and to discuss factors in our district as to why we maintain a certain level of reserve. So I don't think there's anything very new in terms of that. Like I think are all very familiar with the unpredictable nature of what's been happening with COVID. And it has impacted our enrollment and our attendance levels, which obviously have a huge impact on our revenues. So there's just still a need, to just maintain safe fund balances to allow us to preserve the continuity of our operations as we move forward. Are there any questions related to that item?
We are going to be very busy in the upcoming few years because I feel like the budget's kind of like where Alex is, whitewater rafting. Because here we have this influx of money with all the COVID, but yet our ADA's down because of COVID.
Right.
But we have all this money coming in, but then right in our face is a possible recession, which is going to
it's like very conflicting, these factors that we're dealing with, and we're wanting to keep a good position in terms of how we plan for it. We don't want to not plan well for using the revenue that we've had as one-time funds or even for the COLA for upcoming year. But we also need to have some caution because of it has been very difficult to do any kind of real meaningful projections around the enrollment and the attendance. I mean, this last year, we had to continuously revise our ADA amounts down at every interim because we ended up dropping all the way down to like 85% attendance rate, and typically we're somewhere in the 90s, you know, and so that's been a real challenge. I'm grateful that the state has tried to incorporate that, you know, and there have been different proposals as to how that might look. They may be allowing us to do kind of an average or something. So hopefully with good planning and some consideration from the state, everybody can kind of navigate through this. But I think we are in, you know, a good position where we're considering everything as we go. I think our big thing, as we talked about at the last meeting, is that we know that when we hit that third year of the multi-year projection, we see that all the one-time funds have dropped out of the picture at that point, and I think that allows us to see the impact of if we keep all of the added positions on the books, what does that look like? It currently, based on current projections, is a deficit situation, but that's third year out. We will continue to monitor that and, you know, try and have some good discussions in the next couple of years about, you know, how we proceed. But I just noticed a little error on this form that I need to alert you to, and I apologize, but there are 3 columns and I neglected to update the years on those, so I apologize. Those would be rolled forward each 1 year. It should be 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25. And I would like for the minutes if we could do a separate approval of the reserves form.
Now, did I ask for public comment on this? I did? Good. And you just explained everything. So you want 2 separate motions?
Yes, if we could do one for the budget and then one for the reserve.
Okay, so let's do the approval of the 2022-23 Willits USD budget. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve of the 22-23 Willits Unified School District budget.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It carries. And so I am now looking for a motion on the 2022-23 budget adoption reserves.
I move that we approve the 22-23 budget adoption reserves.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
I opposed or?
I am opposed.
Okay, so we have one proposal. Okay. The motion passes. Okay, item E, approval of job description and salary schedule for the position of Executive Director of Student Programs.
And so this, after talking with Mark, was the kind of coming back to a job description that encompasses those principal duties that we were concerned about, that encompasses EL, that encompasses some of our other programs, along with a salary schedule that is revised downward from what the assistant superintendent, though the job duties are very similar there. This was in like I say, I had a conversation with Mark about what direction he would like to go. Oh, okay. And Mark is on Zoom as well, so he could, I don't need to speak for him if he would like to speak for himself as well. But we, I feel like this is, this would be a direction that would be supportive of what the district needs are. But again, I don't have any skin in the game, so it's certainly, at the board's pleasure or in moving forward with Mark.
Okay. Mark, would you like to make any comments in regards to this item?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, congratulations to Joe on his new position. Hello to everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. It's only 105 over here in Chico, so it's really kind of nice times over here. Great job, Nikki, on the budget, and to all the district office personnel for getting this together. I have been in multiple systems as Joe, as Robert alluded to earlier, by some different people, and I've seen this executive director position kind of a catch-all. It's nice to have somebody who has a significant amount of knowledge in multiple areas. Obviously, my knowledge at this particular point is somewhat limited, but it would feel like that the EL program is of a high priority and a board priority and a district priority, as well as a couple of other schools that right now don't seem to have a principal. I heard one of the board members mentioned testing, so assessment and accountability sounds like it might need some oversight, not necessarily direct, but certainly indirect oversight, and then just a few other areas. So that's what an executive director can do. It allows that flexibility, almost like a decathlete or heptathlete, allowing them to have different responsibilities, oversight, coordination. So that was the best idea that I had. And again, hello everybody.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your comments. Let's open it up to the public. Any public comments? If you could state your name.
My name is Brandon Ledwig. I'm currently the WTA grievance chair, and on July 1st I will be the new WTA president, so I'll be here a lot more often.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you so much, Joe, for everything that you've done this past year. It's you're leaving much too soon, but I look forward to a productive future with Mark Beebe, and thank you for your comments as well. This position here, to me, looks like assistant superintendent repackaged. It's the same thing over again. And the problem is, we had all kinds of teachers come up here, board member comments that picked apart the issues that we have with it, and there's no resolution at this point. So one of the biggest issues that we had was this is an administrative position, and it's not somebody that's in the classroom providing English learning services to students. From what I remember from the board saying last time, we had a member that said, look, we need people in the classroom actually delivering this instruction. Another board member said this job description is too much of an umbrella. If we're focused on EL, what happens if they're pulled away for some other issue? EL students, again, aren't getting that focus that they need with this umbrella position because, who knows where the needs are going to arise. Another board member said, look, maybe we should take a look at other high schools or other communities that are very much comparable to Willits. Let's take a look at what best practices are. Let's see what's working and what's not in other places first before we make this commitment. And so, the end result was the board unanimously decided to table this until Mr. Mark Beebe and others can look at these different things that we discussed. And so, I'm dismayed that we have to be here again this month talking about the same thing. Same thing, different title. So I've asked the board to do the same exact thing that you did last time, and that's all I have to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? No other public comment?
Nikki's got her hand.
Yeah. Nikki's kind of part of district. I just want to make sure we took care of our public first and got that wrapped up. And then, Nikki, before you speak, would either superintendent or future superintendent like to say anything in regards to the comments you heard?
So I would just like to point out that the district has been operating this year one administrative position less than what we have historically operated at. And that has caused some issues in service delivery to our students, and that we've had our assistant principals who've been taken away from jobs and supporting the students at those campuses. I think that this is, the job description is a more forward-thinking version of using that administrative position in a way that benefits more students within our district and provides the direction and support that is really needed in order to make sure that when we have a teacher in that position that we can support them and move forward in a way that makes the most sense, but that we can also pay attention to all of the issues that have come up with our federal program monitoring, that we can pay attention to all of the issues that have come up out with learning loss and the assessment pieces that need to happen, and that we've got somebody who's specializing in those areas of things and not necessarily pulled side to side with running a site or those other pieces that come up within that. So that's.
Thank you. Mark, how do you see this position as it serves our EL learners? How do you see this position supporting that?
With the information that I have at this particular point, with what I know, and I wanted to say thank you for the gentleman's comments. I respect all opinions and suggestions and their viewpoints. With the information that I have at this particular point, in order to run an effective program and have the outcomes, on a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, which would correlate back to the indices that you just approved, you're going to have someone that's going to have to be monitoring this. Yes, the classroom individual is the primary individual that's going to be doing that particular instruction, but there has to be some amount of oversight, there has to be some amount of direction, ongoing professional development, ongoing interaction with the teachers, site administrators, county, state, district office level, in order to be able to nudge that down that pathway. Without that, you have isolated and almost silo-based educational with the 4 schools that we have that are going to be driving that program with nobody binding it together. And that's what this particular individual under this umbrella, that's a great term, by the way, thank you for that, that can do. So, but again, my information is somewhat limited. I'm giving you a very kind of global perspective at this particular point. But with some of the other areas that need attention and again, oversight, this feels like what's the best word to use? The most flexible choice, and it doesn't have to be set in stone. You can evaluate this position year in, year out. It doesn't have a contract base to it in terms of 2 year, 3 year, not like mine. So, and we would definitely evaluate that and those indices at the end of each year.
So Mark, this person would oversee, amongst all the other things, they would oversee the ELD program and bring continuity as well as maintaining the vision and direction that the ELD program needs to go. Is that correct?
Well, I think that the primary nature of this particular position would be focused on EL, and then adding the other duties, kind of what I call ODAs, other duties as assigned, and whatever other needs are available in the district or needed in the district. But certainly the EL program, which sounds, again, what I'm getting is that the focus of the board and the schools and the community is on the EL program. So this person needs to definitely be on top of their game with that particular program, but also having some other responsibilities as well, and things that I would, when I get over there and take a harder and deeper look, what can I get involved in as well?
Sure. Okay, thank you, Mark. And sorry, Nikki, I just wanted to kind of keep those things together. Please, you had something to say.
So I would like to speak to the way that this would integrate with our budget. So when we first looked at what our needs are, which I think we've kind of identified some main areas, which are obviously EL. We've got the new ELO program, which has been added, and we have the federal programs, some of which obviously overlaps with EL, but there's more than EL. So going through the FPM process, I cannot overstate the amount of work that went into that and the amount of issues that were highlighted through that process and the amount of work that remains in order to sort of see that through. And I'm very, very grateful to the work that Joe did around that. I am obviously not the person in that position, but just from my viewpoint, it does not really seem reasonable to keep that with the superintendent, the amount of work that is involved in that. But when we identified, and obviously the small schools principalship, I think there's been plenty of discussion around that. When we identified those needs and tried to piece together an efficient way to deal with this in the budget, we identified that we would be able to support the position partially through the new ELO funding, as well potentially as a piece of Title I. And that helps offset the impact to the unrestricted general fund. By taking those pieces away from the position, it actually really cuts down on the efficiency of this position. So I'm struggling to see the value in going in that direction, because at that point, the entire cost of the position becomes a cost to the unrestricted general fund, and we're left with these other needs that are not being met. So I would be curious how we would plan to address those other needs.
Could you say what FPM is?
Federal program monitoring.
I guessed.
Okay, any other public comment? Not hearing anything. Okay, so, we've had some input. Now let's see if we can, you'll get a chance to discuss when we get to that point. Do I hear a motion to approve this position, or this, excuse me, the approval of the job description and salary schedule, the Executive Director of Student Programs? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the job description, which is not the same as approving the position, but approving the job description.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, okay, discussion amongst the board?
Yeah, I really appreciate what you had to say, Brandon. I know that we all just said this already for the past 2 months. I'm concerned with the thought that the administrative position we lost this past year is being used to, sort of balance out having another administrator, when the position that we lost had absolutely nothing to do with bilingual education or English language learning. It had only to do with taking care of one small school and the independent study program as time passed. So for me, that's not a good reason to add an administrator. I appreciate what you had to say, Nikki, and the point that regardless of what it's going to end up costing, since it's already in the LCAP and budgeted, it is not going to allow the most important part that I can see of this job description to maintain its priority. Our students that are limited English speakers have not been given a priority status in years and years and years. I really do believe that it's important we get something in place. Yesterday would have been a good time, but that if we're gonna put it together poorly, it's just gonna be one more time where we do a program that meets a whole lot of negative reaction and does not particularly help out what we need to help. With this job description, it is almost identical to what we started with and disagreed to months ago. And then when we narrowed it down, it almost turned into what could have been a teacher on special assignment position. We managed to put 6 resource teachers into a reading program for the whole district students. But even if you took a third of them to cover your third of the population that has issues with speaking English, we could balance it out nicely then. But then, of course, we couldn't expect our reading program to flourish. Consequently, we can't really take 2 away, but maybe we need to add 2, and we need to make sure in this job description that the people who cover it know the amount of people they're going to need to cover. Okay, and not just leave it all so open and so vague that however you feel like it, it gets dealt with and sent around. That's my biggest concern with this job description, and that if you're going to be a principal at a small school and you want to do it right, you need to be there a lot. If you don't feel that Sherwood, for instance, needs a principal particularly, nor that Sanhedrin particularly needs a principal that is all that time endeavored, then maybe what would be better is some sort of lead teacher kind of program, and then a principal zooms up there every time there's some super emergency. Maintenance worked on it for last year and the years before with their plumbing and their buildings and things like that. I don't think they should be falling apart soon, very soon. And so basically they should be okay. Other things that come up, you know, a trip or 2. We didn't have an administrator going there that often this past year, according to the teachers I spoke with who were working at those sites. So in general, I'm not particularly pleased with this job description at all, and I really hope that since we haven't seemed to put a committee together or gotten involved with community members that are having children directly affected by the type of person who is or isn't going to become another administrative person, I'm not sure we've done the due diligence that needs to be done. Although, like I say, the less thoroughly we do the job, the more we lose in the long run. But we do need to get something in place sooner than later. School starts in less than 2 months. Okay.
Any more discussion? Okay, so my comments on this is I understand the needs of our ELD, and I think our EL students are closer to about 11%. Am I wrong? 11%?
It's about 14%.
14% now? Okay, maybe that's old data. So about 14%. There is a need though, and we do have to address it. Everyone agrees that our ELD program is not where it needs to be, and obviously when we got audited, we had to do our FPM and all that, we came up short in a lot of places. However, it wasn't just the area of that ELD, it was in a lot of other areas that were required to be in. In the selection of this person, I think, is where the rubber's going to meet the road. If we select someone, and if Mark's willing to have them put the ELD program on the front burner, although of course they'll have to do all the other things. But what we need is a ELD program that is well defined, that our EL students get support at each site and in the same way, not in the same way, but to meet their needs, because some sites may have more EL students, other sites not, so that their needs would be met. But it'll need to be someone who understands ELD programs and ELD systems, not just the programs, but how to run a system and how to make it happen. So I think it's really important in the selection of the person who can really provide a robust ELD program. Those are my thoughts on it. Any other comments? Not hearing any. Okay, we're going up for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, one opposed. The motion passes. Approval of resolution number 2021-22-12, Education Protection Act.
So this is a requirement every year. When we received a funding reduction, I believe it was in 2011 or 12, the state brought forward Prop 30, which restored that funding to schools via some sales tax and income taxes. And when that came back, those funds were specifically designated that they were not to be used for administrative expense. So each year, the board adopts a resolution that recognizes that and identifies what our education protection account funding is used for, and we always use that for teacher salaries. So there's a resolution here as well as an attachment which shows the revenue and the salary component of that.
Great. Do we have any public input on this agenda item? No, not hearing any. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move that we approve resolution 2021/22-12, the Education Protection Act.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion is approved.
Would be a roll call.
Oh, excuse me, it is a
All the rest of
resolution.
these are roll call.
That's right. Jeannie?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
Myself, aye.
Diane, aye.
Okay. Resolution passes. Okay. Approval of resolution 2021-22-13, authorization for the 2021-22 interfund temporary cash transfers.
So this is, the next several resolutions are just sort of forms that we have to do each year that allow me to do the accounting necessary to do the closing of the books in the fall, as well as to operate throughout the following year. So as a reminder, our fund balance and our cash flow can be on different schedules. So when we close the books, we have to make sure that if we have an account, for instance, that is expecting a receivable that would substantiate the fund balance, but the cash has not been received yet, that we can transfer from another fund so that we're not closing out with negative dollars in the treasury account. That is done on a temporary basis. If it does need to be done, it's literally done for one day and it's moved directly back. It's just a formality.
Okay. Any public comment on agenda item G? Not hearing any. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the resolution 2021-22-13.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Jeannie?
Aye.
Paula? Robert? Aye.
Diane, aye.
Okay, great. Okay, item H, approval of resolution 2021/22-14, authorization for 2021-22 year-end transfers.
So this one is the one that allows me to do the closing entries that we need, and those usually pertain to things like moving the indirect costs between programs, as well as if we have a contribution out from the general fund to a program, doing the final entry while I'm closing the books.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on this agenda item? Not Not seeing any. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the resolution 2021-22-14.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Discussion, any board discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call. Jeannie?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
Robert? Aye.
Diane, aye.
Okay, resolution is passed. Agenda item I, and that is approval of resolution 2021/22-15, authorization for 2022-23 transfers.
So this is the one that allows me to open the books for 22-23 and to begin doing budget transfers as needed as we begin the year.
Okay. Any public comment on item I? Not seeing any. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to be approved resolution 2021-22-15, authorization for 22-23 transfers.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay. And any board discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the roll call vote. Jeannie?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Roberts and I, and Diane.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is approved. Item J, approval of resolution 2021/22-16, appropriating ending 2021-22 balances to a reserve.
So state law indicates that any unappropriated balances must be returned to the state. So we appropriate those funds to a reserve so as to maintain possession of the funds.
Any public comment on item J? Not hearing any. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve resolution 2021-22-16, appropriating ending 21-22 balances to a reserve.
Okay, we have a first, second.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion amongst the board members?
Yeah, I have
Paula?
a question. Is that the part that coming from our budget adoption reserves?
So the document we looked at for that is looking at 22-23 and forward into the multi-year projection, and they are just projections based on our current assumptions. What this resolution is looking at is as I close out the current year, once it's all said and done, anything that we have, regardless of whether it's considered the amount that would be the reserve for economic uncertainty or some other unappropriated amount, like the whole balance, we have to appropriate it to our reserve in order to keep it and not have to forfeit that back to the state.
So we're thinking about $4 million plus?
Let me look at. It
I
is,
mean, according
it is,
to this.
well, but if you're looking at the one that is looking at future year, so we would have to look essentially at the estimated actuals, that's what would give us that ballpark number. It would be ending balance, projected ending balance for 21-22 would be the number that we'd be looking at. Do you want me
Right,
to
and
pull
that-
that up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I thought that in the budget that we looked at last week or whenever, it was similar to that or a little higher.
I would think, yeah, off the top of my head, I believe it is in that ballpark, but I also don't want to. So, what's up? Okay, estimated actuals. We are projecting,
That's what I was just gonna do.
so the combined restricted and unrestricted ending fund balance is 6.6 million essentially, 6.598. So, 1.5 of that is restricted and 5.1 is unrestricted.
Okay, and so what you're thinking is that chances are strong $1 million will be used before you get to when you close out. Is that it? Because this has to come from what you
No,
figure is left over,
no,
right?
so if you are looking, you're looking at this.
Yeah, well, I
Okay,
was sort of looking.
so essentially, it's like the, remember we had to update these
Yeah.
columns?
Yeah,
So really,
no.
this one's 22, 23.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily from now till when we close in September, it's that we're looking at the ending balance for 21, 22 into the ending balance of 22, 23. So the span of the next school year. So we are anticipating deficit spending in 22, 23.
To the tune
So
of a
it
couple
brings
million
that
dollars.
down. Well, so keep in mind too, when you're looking at restricted versus unrestricted, that can be very different things. With restricted, we're dealing with a lot of one-time funds. So for instance, we're getting money in from the state for these programs and they say, you know, the program may operate 2 years or 3 years and you get the funds. And it's normal in the way you're operating that you would get them, not use them all in that 1 year
Right.
because you're going across the years. So it looks, I think in some sense it looks worse than it is when you say you're deficit spending like a large amount on the restricted side, but it could just be the timing of the program and the funds. Whereas when we're looking more at the unrestricted side, that tends to be more what we're looking at when we say like, is our budget in alignment? Do we have our expenditures and revenues aligned? So that tends to be the piece I would focus more on if you're looking at deficit spending, would be the unrestricted side. But in the context of appropriating the funds for this resolution, we have to do it for all funds, restricted and unrestricted.
Right, we just make sure that we spend all restricteds for everything that we can.
Of course,
First.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
and that's all dictated by whatever those program requirements are.
Okay, and
Yeah.
that's about $1.5 million of the $6 million that are the end of the years.
Projected
this-
for current
Projected for
year.
this year.
Correct.
Exactly, so then, really, it's about $500,000 that you figure will close to spend out? Or are you thinking that this $4 million is going to be smaller?
Right, so what we're looking at for the 22-23 budget projection right now is deficit spending 218,000 unrestricted and deficit spending 724,000 restricted. So we are projecting an ending unrestricted balance for the end of next year, 4.8,
Okay, 4.8 is better.
high 40, almost
Yeah.
40.
And this isn't including the maybe 10% or 5% or 15% that's coming from the state.
This factored in a COLA just shy of 10%. So
Oh, okay.
you're right, there was kind of a range
Yeah.
discussed. We did not factor all the way up to a 15%. We went with 10%, trying to be somewhat moderate in the approach. And it also does not factor in if the state were to approve those one-time discretionary funds that were also one of the proposals that
Yeah.
have been discussed with the state.
Okay, did this include the 1.8 billion that's supposed to, $1 million that's, sorry, I'd love to see $1 million, but that is coming in also? Or probably not, since that's not completely
I'm not
set?
sure which one's that you're referring to. The
Well, I
1.8
thought that our
billion.
governor had already decided, or was going to decide, to send an additional that Willits would be getting at about 1.8 million.
That's that one-time discretionary,
Yeah.
we're not sure how that's.
Oh, okay.
So not yet.
Oh,
factored
okay,
in.
okay.
Yeah, the only thing that I factored in for like non-program things, for LCFF,
Yeah.
we just said this year,
This
we
year.
updated based on enrollment and ADA projections and did just shy of a 10% COLA. That's what it's based on.
Okay, good, thank you, thank you.
Any more discussion? Essentially, we're capturing this money so it doesn't go back to the state.
That's it.
And we'll use it as we need it for the coming years.
So because we move it into reserves doesn't mean we can't take it out if,
Yeah, it's
It's a
still,
placeholder.
it's really a formality to meet
Okay.
that legal requirement, and we still, whenever we look at our budgets, see it broken down into those different categories where we see the restricted amount, the, piece that we calculate for the reserve for economic uncertainty, which is based on the board policy, and then if there's anything still there over and above those amounts, that's listed as unassigned.
Any more discussion? Okay, this is a roll count vote, so Jeannie,
Aye.
Paul, and Robert's and I, and Diane's and I. Okay, great. Now, item number 7, public comments for items not on the agenda. Trina, how are you doing?
Well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Brought some stuff to share with the board.
Great, thank you.
This is for the attachment shop. So we're just gonna play a little education game here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's the right arena.
All right, so you guys are all, Trina Cardillo, just HR, Willits Unified. So you guys are aware that there is a nationwide teacher shortage. That's not a shock. The California Teaching Commission has gotten really creative in trying to help rural areas, well, all areas, to get teachers in. Basically, what they've said, if you have a bachelor's degree, we can get you in a classroom. So what we've been doing, we've been working with MCOE, and I want to just explain this process because at last week's meeting, it was shared that you can be on a PIP for 3 years, and that is not true. So if you would just take your little blue, we're going to go down here. So if you have a bachelor's degree and you want to be a teacher, there's steps. So if you've not taken the CBEST, which is the basic skills, you can get a waiver. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of try to explain this. Because the shortage is so dire, the CTC came back and said, you don't have to pass the CBEST anymore. If you can show 9 credits in reading, writing, and math with a C or better, we'll waive that. Okay? Pay your $100 to the CTC and show that you've been trying to get teachers, and we can put them in the classroom. And that's what people have been doing everywhere, Willits Unified included. So if you've taken the CBEST, or if you have those credits, then you don't have to do a variable term waiver, VTW. But if you'll flip your page over, this one here, this explains the process. So that first year, if you've got your CBEST or you have those 9 credits, we can put you on a PIP, a provisional internship permit. It's good for 1 year. During that year, teachers that are working in the classroom, it allows them to work and get a paycheck and still go to school. So that PIP will cover you for a year. And you're doing your coursework and trying to get into a teaching program. At the end of that year, if you haven't completed all of your coursework to get into a teacher intern program, you can get another type of waiver. It's called a STIP, a short-term staff permit. It's good for 1 year. A PIP and a STIP, you use it once, you can never use it again. Okay, so you get a PIP, that's your first year. The second year, the first year maybe you're a variable term waiver. We had 1 teacher this year on a VTW at Willits Unified. The second year you'll go to a PIP. This year we had 4 teachers on a PIP. You may leave that PIP, and that third year you're still not quite ready, you're going to go on a STIP, a short-term staff permit. And then after you've used up those 3, you get into a teaching program, 2 years, now we're at 5 years. Okay? They're still working, they're still coming to work every day, still working on their programs, still teaching students, and hopefully Willits Unified is still supporting those people.
Now, are they required to make progress as
They have to, they must make progress going forward, and all of ours are doing that each year. So now they're in an intern program. They're there for 2 years. We're at 7 years, possibly 7. And then after you get out of your internship program, you go into induction for 2 years.
So
you can now
who are they
see,
intern with?
there's lots of different programs in the state. There's gosh, they're everywhere. There's one at Sonoma County, it's North Coast School of Education. There's one in Lake County, Brandman, Chapman, they're everywhere. Yeah, they're everywhere. Okay, so after you get out of your internship, then you go into induction for 2 years. And Willits Unified pays for your induction. What I'm here today is to tell you that this is a really long process. And it disheartens me to have people get up and say that, to not support these folks that are doing this for Willits Unified. Like I said, we had 4 people on PIPs this year. 2 of those were classified members that came through. They were classified, they were paraprofessionals, they got their bachelor's degree, and they're stepping through. They're doing what we need them to do because it's hard to attract teachers in Willits. We had 1 person on a short-term staff permit. He's in his 2nd year. He was on a PIP last year. He was a classified member. They're going through. And then we had 1 person on a variable term waiver because he didn't qualify for the CVEST or didn't complete that. We have had 5 interns this year, and in induction we had 8. Of those 8, 7 are moving on. So I'm hoping that they get their clear credential this summer. Anyway, I just wanted to share that information with you as far as the steps for becoming a teacher. It's a long time. And I do monitor them, and I work with these teachers, and I try to encourage them and keep them going. Now I just want to also show you this. This is the last sheet. This talks about our current vacancies. Right now in Willits Unified, we have over 20 openings. We have a need for 6.2 teachers. We have a teacher that's doing a work reduction. So we have 6.2 teachers needed for 22-23. And just real quick, one of those is a new position, PE at Brookside. We've been advertising for a PE teacher at Brookside for over a year. So that's that position. Another position at Brookside, full-time teacher. That position was filled from somebody at Chico. Again, year 2, where we lost somebody because they cannot find housing in Willits. So we lost that person again. At the point 2 I told you about. We have 2 positions at Bechtel Grove in core. One of those is a new position that I have been advertising all year for 2021, 21-22. So, and then the other is math science. And then a music teacher, that's another one at Bechtel, that's new. And then the other one that concerns me, this is at Blosser Lane, this is Ahmad Sabir. I'm very concerned about filling this position. This position has been with a sub since January in that classroom over at Blosser. I don't know. I'm on EdJoin. I've been to job fairs. I'm trying the best that I can to fill these positions. We keep creating new positions. Oh yeah, and to support programs, and that's all great. But I can't manifest people.
Have you contacted any of the colleges?
I have,
Try to
and
get a job
every
on it?
week through Handshake, it's where the job fairs select Sonoma State and all of them. They send me matches for folks that have credentials, and I email individually. This week's 157. I email all of those folks.
Is there anything that we can do to support your work? Because that's a lot.
Well, I'm glad you know the steps now. You know the process. That's helpful.
I know Ukiah got really aggressive in their salaries for teachers, for new teachers coming in. And we're always competing with that bigger budget over there.
Yes. And it's hard in a rural area like ours, and I really want to encourage. We have 2 members in our classified unit right now that are working so hard at getting their bachelor's degree, and they're both in special ed, and those are really hard positions to fill. And I want our employees to feel supported and not feel that we don't appreciate them when they're working hard to get through the steps to be a teacher.
I wanted to say that from what I've read, a lot of communities are growing their own.
That's what
But
we are
What they're trying to
doing.
do is grow their own, so that you don't have to import somebody from out of the area, comes here and finds out it's not what they thought, and they don't wanna stay. But there are people that are committed to this community, that have families here, that wanna be part of this school district, that wanna be part of this community. And also, in my many years teaching special ed, the aides that I worked with are some of the absolutely finest teachers that I've ever seen work with kids. And I'm a re-entry student myself. I went back to school when I was 30, and I was single, so I was able to go to school and work and put myself through school to get my teaching credential. But I know that that's what some people do. They find that that's really what they want to do, and they move in that direction. You know, I really support. I mean, I think our district office staff is awesome. I mean, Nikki, I have full faith in. I have full faith in you. And I know growing our own is what we have to try to do, and we need, as a school district, to support those people who are trying to become teachers.
I agree, thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Because when do these people get tenure? After they have a credential and work in the district for 2 years?
So you don't be, I put my foot up there. You don't get permanent status until your credential is clear.
So after you do the 2 years.
So-
Yes.
So you could be here 7 years
You can
before
be.
you-
7 to 9
Oh,
years.
okay. 7 and
Yeah,
9 years.
until that credential is clear. So, we have a teacher at Bechtel whose credential I anticipate to clear during the school year. So if that happens and they were with us the year and a half prior, then that's when they get it. You know, they'll, following school year starts. So they don't have to wait 2 years after it's cleared if they've been with us. Once it clears, and
They're automatically tenured or
I'm
permanent?
following.
Following the school year?
I'm gonna look at it again.
It's in the
so
ed
it's-
code, I think.
It's the ed code, and so,
Well, we
but
have
no,
a
they
new
cannot,
policy.
they cannot get permanent status. A teacher cannot get permanent status without a full credential.
Oh, okay, and then the other thing I heard from the county is that if a teacher with a credential comes into a district and applies for a job, oh, good idea, thanks. I'll just sit back here,
Yeah,
because
there
stuff
you
like
go.
that makes me
You're out.
nuts.
Oh, you did kill it?
It's going that way.
Oh, I see it, very good, Doug.
Oh, it's coming this way.
Yeah, it's okay for you guys, it makes me crazy, or crazier, whatever. The other thing is, what I understood, thank you, Richard, I appreciate that.
I'm gonna pick up on
Like I said, thank you, Richard. The other thing is, according to the county, and this was in special ed, so I'm not certain if it'll apply to regular education as well, although she seemed to think so, is that if a person with a credential comes into the district and applies for the job, to a person without the credential can lose their spot for that.
What? I didn't understand what you said.
I come in and I have a credential and you're
And-
teaching in a class, you don't have a credential. The position has been posted, I go and apply, and I can take your job, so to speak. Now, is that what happens here?
She's asking if
I don't,
someone is
when
in a
somebody's
position.
assigned, they're
Yeah.
assigned
Yeah.
for the year.
She's saying that someone with
I
a credential
think
can
it's
come
before
and
they're
take
hired,
someone that
Yeah,
you're
doesn't
before
have
supposed
a
to really
credential.
go with the
No,
credential.
once
Because-
we offer a position and they sign it, we're under a contract
You're under a
with them.
contract, so then
Yes.
it only resorts back to when, before that contract was signed, when you had an applicant that was fully credentialed compared to one that wasn't.
Are you talking about that's interviewing or that was applied, that,
that applied,
I-
she didn't make a well, her
I have
attitude
a
was that
vacancy and I have
whoever
a teacher that's
comes.
credentialed and a teacher that's not credentialed and they both applied for it.
Mhm.
I don't have to give it to the one with the credential. Is that what you're asking me? No, I don't have to give it to the person with the credential because it also has to be somebody that fits into that school. You know, you can't, just because they have a credential doesn't mean that they're a right fit for that school.
And you have a fit criteria?
Do I?
Just the
I don't do the hiring, the administrator
Well,
does
no,
the
that's
hiring.
what I figured, but I mean.
Yes, we
when
have-
you said it, I'm just answering it as you spoke.
The administrators do job interviews.
The
It's
peop-
not
the
just,
people on the panels or whoever's doing
Right.
the interviews.
Yes.
Theoretically, it's a panel, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Oh,
but just
okay.
because someone has a credential doesn't make them the right fit for the position.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. Did you have something to say that you'd like to
I
share?
did. I just wanted to say that I apologize for was it last week we were here? I feel like I was misunderstood. It's really, we appreciate everybody that comes and applies and gets hired. And we're trying as a union to support everybody. And we do have our concerns about those who haven't gone into a program right away because we know the benefit for those of us that did it. And a lot of them aren't getting the mentoring that they're supposed to be getting. And yeah, we've had COVID and it's a weird situation. And so that's the concern. You know, we want every student getting the very best quality teacher, right? So, and I know that might be everybody that you can hire. But we have to make sure we get our mentors in those rooms, observing them, just like student taught with Diane. She observed me for 9 weeks. I had a college person coming in and observing me once a week. They're not getting observed at all. You know what I'm saying? So we just want them to make sure they're getting their proper support.
So I thought we
May I
were
ask you a
assigning
question?
mentors.
Were you doing student teaching or were you?
I was a student teacher,
That's the difference.
and then I came in with a credential.
A student teacher does have somebody that comes in, like
But
you're
we
just
do have it set up on the salary schedule
There's
to have a
stipends.
mentor.
Yeah,
And-
my understanding, because I do believe that timesheets get turned in annually for that, and my understanding is that we were paying stipends for mentors who are assigned like internally, or if they're enrolled through North Coast School of Education, depending on the program they're doing. It could be somebody who's from a neighboring school district, depending on availability. But I was not aware of situations where people are not being assigned of that.
They're being assigned, but people aren't really showing up.
Oh, okay.
Or
Sorry,
they're coming
misunderstood.
so randomly that it's, in my opinion, it's not good enough.
So that may be a site issue that we have to shore up and bring accountability to the sites.
And maybe that's something for next year we can work together on to
Okay.
make sure we have a better plan in place for
So-
all of these newer teachers.
Diane
Need it.
Johnson is our new coordinator for North Coast School of Education, and she's the one that handles all the mentors and everything. She took over for Ann.
Or even with the PIPs and the,
She oversees all of that,
Okay.
yeah.
because
So
those are
that-
the people
that's a-
I'm really
that's a
concerned about, are the
contact.
PIPs and the STIPs.
That's your contact, Diane
Okay.
Johnson.
It's my understanding, and I could be very wrong, but that the whole COVID thing messed people up, is that they couldn't get
Yeah.
into classrooms, they didn't want to be on campus and get COVID, because a lot of them were retired teachers or
Yeah.
whatever. And so all that process sort of got messed up, and they didn't want volunteers or extra people on campus. So, that shouldn't be an issue anymore if that was partly what was causing the problem.
And maybe we need to come up with a plan, like how often that person comes.
Well, it sounds like
Anyway, so
Diane
think
is
of
the
the right
person
support, yeah.
to talk to.
Some type of continuity in the
Yes.
program. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I appreciate all the work you do, because that's a lot. I mean, that would be a lot for a big district back in the day, but now we're a small district trying to get all that. That's a lot of work. Items for the next regular board agenda. Did you have an item you wanted possibly on the next board agenda?
Oh, that I don't get to talk about today? Yes, we can put the concerns for English language learners and what else did I do?
The ELD program?
ELD program. That would be
Okay.
good.
Okay,
And also,
okay.
we're already gonna have the thing for administrators coming back to board meetings and, talking about trimesters and,
So, do we have those on the agenda for the August?
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, August 10th.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Any other items for the next regular board agenda? No. Okay, may I have a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Paula?
I would like to. I'm gonna do that on purpose.
I'm just teasing you,
now.
Paula, you have to. I have to do that.
I know, it's okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.